here's Brody Brazil.
We now know that Sheng Thao, current District 4 council member, is set to be the next mayor in the city of Oakland. It was a tight race between she and Lauren Taylor. It was ranked choice voting, which made it about a 2-week process from Election Day till we finally got the results, until Mr. Taylor finally conceded. And what I want to do now is go back and play you portions of an interview I did with Councilmember Thao, Mayor-Elect Thao. I'll have to get used to saying that. I also did one with Lauren Taylor, by the way. They're in full here on my YouTube channel, so you can check them out. But I think it's interesting to look back specifically at our Howard Terminal-focused conversation and play it back. It's more interesting now, knowing what we know, knowing who is the next mayor, and trying to figure out how all of this plays out. I've got 8 interesting clips. The first one goes like this. Sheng was explaining how she had not been hands-on in terms of negotiations with the A's and the city of Oakland. The council members mostly leave that up to city staff, but now taking over as mayor, she expects to be a lot more involved.
It's one of those things where I would step in as a leader who is pretty straightforward. I've gotten deals done, that have been decades old, including undergrounding, issues in the hills and the Chabot Space and Science Center and their debt really fully wiping that off the table so they can move forward with NASA. And so I would approach this the same way, is bringing people to the table, really having conversations about what the minimum requirements look like, and not playing games on either side. Again, I don't know how those negotiations look like because I'm not in those negotiations. And I'm not even in the working group, working with city staff to negotiate what they will say when they meet with the Oakland A's. But I would try to come to, some sort of yes for everybody. So
where do you get the updates on then, right? You're not directly involved, but how do you hear the information, which obviously is critical to what you're about to jump into?
Absolutely. We get updates from city staff. And so anytime something big happens, they'll call for an emergency meeting with just me. They'll meet with every single council member so that they don't violate and we don't violate the Brown Act.
Right.
And so that's how we get updated.
In this next clip, we talk about the state and federal grants that are very much needed for Howard Terminal and the infrastructure in surrounding neighborhoods. Some of these grants have been secured. Several others are very much still outstanding, which obviously puts the project in its entirety in a precarious place because neither the A's nor Oakland get to control how, when, and where these grants actually get delivered.
What I do believe that Mayor Schaaf did do well is to go get grants from the state and the federal level, right? And so these grants wouldn't come to the city if it weren't for this specific project. And so I do believe that does leverage and gives the city leverage in regards to how we fund the infrastructure outside of Howard Terminal.
So the way it's set up, and what I understand is that right now, some of these grants have been secured, like in the hundreds of millions of dollars so far. You thought you were about the tens of millions of dollars away. I think Oakland got to be within 90% of the 2021 estimate for offsite infrastructure for Howard Terminal. But obviously now inflation and everything else, and now it's turned into $100+ million is the gap to bridge. But all of this continues to rely on federal and state grants. And Oakland and the A's are both kind of left at the mercy of those coming through. Is that a bad position for both sides to be in right now?
I believe that if the money is already secured from the state and federal funds, I think that we can move forward in the sense that, we would have to figure out how the gap is filled. But again, I do not feel comfortable moving forward with anything that doesn't have those strong backstops. It's just not fair for Oakland residents. We have seen what that has cost Oakland residents with the Raiders.
Sure.
And so, so we have to have those mechanisms. I'm a yes if, right? And so I do have these different criteria that I'm looking for in regards to the deal. Otherwise, it's not going to, otherwise I wouldn't even be able to vote for it. And I've been very clear, and I've been the clearest about that on the city council. And so I do believe that what I'm asking for is the minimum that the Oakland A's can do. And, and I really hope that they would want to actually do that kind of work because they want to be rooted here in Oakland.
In this next clip, I want to go back to what you just heard. Maybe it caught your ear. She mentions the Raiders. There is a ghost effect, ghost of the Raiders, and it is a residual effect in the city of Oakland.
Absolutely. We're still paying their bill for them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's an expensive residual feeling for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, does that lie in the back of people's minds that that has an effect on what you're doing with the Oakland A's? And is that, I won't say is that fair, but do you have to shake that sometimes to understand that this is a different project? These are different people. Yes, it deals with sports, but this is a totally different development.
It is a totally different development. However, you have to learn from your past mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And the past mistakes that we have learned from the Raiders is that we didn't have the strong language in place in regards to the strong backstops.
Got it.
Right. So it's not, it's not whether or not it's not just a toss up where it's like, yes, you either want the development or you don't. There's so many nuances that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a true believer of, yes, this is a whole different project. It's completely different people. However, we have to do what we have been sworn in to do, which is to protect, the fiscal solvency of the city and make sure that we are, voting on things that will be in the best interest of taxpayers and residents.
Let's keep it on the topic of securing that infrastructure money for the neighborhood surrounding Howard Terminal and Jack London Square. It really is the biggest obstacle of this entire project right now for both sides, the A's and the city of Oakland, because so much of it leans on these federal and state grants. Now, we should learn more about a very high dollar amount coming up in the month of January, whether it will or will not come, or when it could come, or what are the details of it. But until then, it leaves a lot of us wondering, what if these methods of grants, what if they cannot bridge the gap of infrastructure costs for this project?
There are other ways that that I have in regards to, or other ideas that I have in regards to how we fill in that gap.
Okay.
But it's a very sensitive topic. And so, we have to be cognizant when we talk about how we actually bring those funds in to fill in the gap. If we were to get state and federal funding that have secured, if we were to get the Oakland A's and secure that funding, I believe that there is a pathway to fill in the gap if we continue to work together.
So you've got some good ideas. You just do not want to share them right now with me because that's giving away the secrets.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And then it's not good for negotiations.
Totally understand. Totally understand. Looking back, Sheng Thao was not endorsed by current mayor Libby Schaaf. That endorsement went to her rival, Lauren Taylor. In fact, the mayors of San Jose and San Francisco also gave their endorsements to Lauren Taylor. So you can clearly see there is a certain disconnect between Oakland's current mayor and the city's next mayor. Sheng let that be known, her frustration of how things got handled, how there was no agreement between the city and the A's in September. She really wanted to move forward with this project, considering all the effort, all the time that both sides had put in. She was hoping to vote on something back in September. And she leaves no doubt she was frustrated by that.
And to see that they haven't actually gotten that much headway for us to actually receive even a draft proposal, it's frustrating, and it's it's just very frustrating. That's just point blank what it is. And because I was expecting that if you're going to be spending all of your time at the federal government asking for all these grant funds when you could have been asking for funding for our unhoused or our public safety, but you're using your political will to ask for the grant funds for Howard Terminal for the greater good or whatever have you, then at least we would have a draft by now, and so it's just really disappointing.
How does Oakland balance, and because you brought it up and I was going to go there anyway, how does Oakland balance all of the other issues it's facing right now? And many are life and death. The Howard Terminal Ballpark, very important, but certainly not to the same level of crime and violence and homelessness. And the school district, I know that's also a big concern for the council right now. Does the city of Oakland have the proper bandwidth these days to facilitate projects and issues on all fronts? Or how do you see that?
These days?
Yeah.
Since you said these days, it's obvious it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? In my opinion, the answer to that is no. I mean, currently and this falls under, we're legislators, so we don't have authority to direct city staff on how to handle things. But under the current administration, we're seeing that they're not able to handle all the different crises.
I think what you're seeing in the course of this interview is that Mayor-Elect Thao, she's not ready to sign all the documents and all the papers tomorrow, and she wants to make sure this is all done the right way. And even the biggest proponents of the project, I believe, understand that from the side of the city of Oakland. They want to make sure they get this right. This is a big deal. But for as much as she wants to go through the entire process, I think right here she also makes it very clear she is not against the Howard Terminal Ballpark at all. So I don't know if this is fair for me to pose it like this, but is there a 1 to 10 like scale of how much you actually want this project to get done, all things considered, the right way?
Okay, all things considered the right way, yes. I think there is a huge win-win opportunity. I mean, for me, it's about how do we expand community benefits?
Yeah.
How do we expand our general revenue, right? We need more dollars to come and pay for more services.
Right.
So there's a way that we can make this all work where we can capture more revenues by visitors or what have you, activate Jack London Square again, activate downtown again. I mean, that's a huge win. So, if everything was done correctly especially with the money and making sure that there's strong backstops, I think that I can tell you here that I'd be a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
With 10 being like the strongest support.
Yeah. All things considered. Again, I totally
want to make sure. Yeah.
We
I want to be very clear.
We won't play just that clip. We have to understand the entire context of what you're saying to make it right. Howard Terminal remains kind of a difficult project for a lot of people to comprehend. And especially if they're not paying attention to it on a regular basis, they haven't been following for weeks or months or years. There's a lot of moving parts. There's had to have been a lot of creativity to get to this point with all parties being satisfied. And because there's so many moving pieces, there's just a lot to understand. And there are definitely some misconceptions that she's working on trying to clear up.
Yes, I do a lot of education. I want people to have the correct information in this campaign cycle, not about this topic per se. There are some confusion about this topic, but just as I'm on the campaign trail, there's so much disinformation out there about everything, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I think the thing that people get confused about is like, well, all of this money that we're getting, we have so many other streets that could actually be paved, and you should do that first. And so I have to remind people that these monies are actually dedicated for Howard Terminal infrastructure improvements. And if we didn't have Howard Terminal, we would have to give it back. And so it's not like we would have it anyway to spend how we would like to spend it. We wouldn't have those money if it weren't for Howard Terminal, because the lobbying for those funds or what have you. And so that's the part that has been a little confusing for folks, but I do educate people because I want people to understand, what's really happening on the ground. And not just that, but to then take a step back to reassess if they have to see how they feel about the project, because I do, I really care about how people are feeling on the ground in regards to whether or not they feel like we should move forward with Howard Terminal.
The analogy I use on that one is like, it's a college scholarship and it's going to pay for your schooling. You don't get that money to go buy a new car with, or like, and that's what you're saying, right? People are wondering, well, how are you getting this money to do this? Well, if Oakland doesn't get it, then Baltimore or Seattle or Long Beach gets it, right? Like, why wouldn't you put yourself out there for these funds?
Yeah.
So.
These are line items, budget items. And so it's not, you just can't shift it around and say, we're going to use it to do something else with it.
In this final clip, I am going to lean into the promise she's about to make because we've got it on video. I'll just keep playing it back. Mayor-Elect Thao says she'll be open with me. She'll do more interviews. She'll be very transparent about the Howard Terminal project and process moving forward. And look, that doesn't guarantee that it's a slam dunk or it's going to happen, but that is greatly going to improve the quality of communication and knowledge and public perception. So I hope what she says here plays out to be true. And hopefully our relationship talking about this project can continue. If you're the mayor, you're the person to talk to for sure.
No, absolutely. I want to be very transparent. And so long as I could get out the message, the wider the breadth, the better it is. So I welcome that relationship. Come January, because I will be your mayor. And, call me anytime. I would love to talk candidly on camera.
We've known all along there was going to be a new mayor in the city of Oakland, but ultimately it comes down to her and the council members to vote on what eventually should be a development agreement between the A's and Oakland. Here is the next biggest thing that we'll have to find out. What about all of these new council members? I think it's pretty clear the current ones, the existing ones that will continue on in their terms, how they feel, their positions, kind of which way they've leaned in towards the project or not. But what about all the new ones in the city of Oakland? How do they feel? How do they approach this project? How will they vote on it if something is agreed on in the next handful of months? So that's what I'm going to be working on next, contacting these individuals, talking to them, and hopefully bringing those conversations to you.